The world has long worshipped the idea of the diploma, a scroll of parchment sealed in ink declaring a person's worth. Universities rose as modern temples of knowledge, and degrees became the golden keys to success. Parents told their children that without one, doors would remain closed. Yet, in the shadows of this narrative, there are outliers, rebels who tore up the script and wrote their own destinies. These were not failures, but visionaries who refused to be caged by the rigid paths of academia. They are the dropouts who became billionaires. Their stories are not tales of quitting but of awakening. What they abandoned was not education but confinement. What they chose was freedom, the brutal, uncertain, and glorious freedom of carving their names into history. This is their legend. In the mid-1970s, Harvard University was buzzing with the brightest minds. Among them was a young man with piercing eyes and an obsession with code. William Henry Gates III. Harvard professors saw him as a prodigy, but Gates was restless. One night, while flipping through a magazine, he stumbled upon an article about the Altair 8800, the first true personal computer. For most, it was a toy. For Gates, it was destiny knocking. He dropped out, not in shame, but with a declaration, the future will run on software. Alongside Paul Allen, he founded Microsoft. In his dorm room days, he was just another student. But as the world digitized, his vision turned him into an emperor of the digital age. By his 30s, Gates was not just a billionaire, he was a force that redefined civilization. Windows was no longer just glass. It was the window into the future. Across the country, another dropout was brewing his storm. Steve Jobs wandered the campus of Reed College, auditing calligraphy classes while skipping his official ones. He slept on dorm floors, survived on free meals at Hare Krishna temples, and questioned every rule society offered him. He never earned his diploma, but his eye for beauty and simplicity transformed the world. Jobs co-founded Apple in a garage. His rebellion was not against learning, but against mediocrity. He demanded elegance in machines, soul in circuits, poetry in pixels. The Macintosh, the iPod, the iPhone, each was born from a man who believed technology was not just functional, but spiritual. Jobs proved that you didn't need a degree to change the way humanity communicates, listens, works, and dreams. In 2004, inside Harvard's dorms, a pale, hooded figure tapped furiously on his keyboard. Mark Zuckerberg had built the Facebook, a digital directory for his classmates. What began as a tool to connect college students quickly exploded into a revolution of human interaction. Lectures became distractions. The classroom became irrelevant. Zuckerberg walked away from Harvard not because he couldn't keep up, but because the world couldn't keep up with him. Facebook evolved into Meta, a platform that redefined community, influence, and even democracy itself. Love, revolutions, businesses, and friendships now sprout from seeds planted on his digital soil. Zuckerberg's billions are not just numbers. They are proof of a man who understood human connection better than the professors who graded him. Unlike Gates or Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison's story didn't start in an Ivy League tower. Abandoned by his biological father and raised in a modest Chicago household, Ellison drifted through 2 universities before dropping out of both. He had no diploma, no plan, and no connections. But he had grit. Ellison founded Oracle, a company that became the backbone of corporate data systems across the globe. While others sought safety in structured paths, Ellison thrived in chaos. He lived fast, raced yachts, and defied convention at every turn. His billions were carved not from polished theory but from street-honed instinct. He is the testament that brilliance doesn't always sit in lecture halls. It often smolders in the streets. Waiting for the right spark, Michael Dell didn't wait to graduate to pursue his empire. As a student at the University of Texas, he was already tinkering with computers in his dorm room, selling custom machines directly to customers. He realized something revolutionary. People didn't want standardized products. They wanted machines tailored to their needs. His grades suffered, but his bank account soared. Soon, he dropped out entirely. Dell Computers became one of the most trusted names in technology. His story is proof that some classrooms are too small for the dreams they attempt to contain. What began with tools on a dorm desk evolved into a multinational corporation worth billions. Richard Branson never cared for the academic world. Dyslexia made school a battlefield, and by 16 he had dropped out entirely. But what he lacked in grades, he made up for in courage. Branson launched a student magazine, then a record shop, then an airline, and eventually an empire called Virgin. From music to aviation to space tourism, his ventures carried one signature trait: daring. Branson is not the story of code or algorithms, but of audacity. He shows the world that while books can teach you facts, only risk can teach you greatness. Today, his billions are the reward of a man who consistently bet on himself. Born in Nebraska, Evan Williams dropped out of the University of Nebraska after only a year and a half. He pursued technology in California, bouncing between jobs before co-founding Blogger, one of the first popular blogging platforms, and later co-creating Twitter. He didn't finish his education, but he finished something far more influential: the blueprint for global conversations in 280 characters. Williams's story is not as loud as Jobs or Zuckerberg's, but it is equally transformative. He showed that even small, concise ideas can ripple across the world and create empires. For every legend, there is also a cautionary tale. Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford at 19, claiming she would revolutionize blood testing with her company, Theranos. Investors poured billions into her dream. For a moment, she was hailed as the next Jobs, but her empire was built on deception, not innovation. It crumbled, taking with it fortunes, reputations, and trust. Her story stands as a warning. Dropping out is not a guarantee of greatness. Without authenticity, vision collapses into illusion. Not all rebels become heroes. Some become tragedies. What unites these figures is not their rejection of education, but their rejection of limits. Gates saw the future of software before professors could define it. Jobs infused machines with artistry. Universities couldn't teach Zuckerberg. Rewrote social fabric while still a teenager. Ellison trusted instinct over textbooks. Dell built machines while lectures droned on. Branson gambled when others hesitated. Williams believed in brevity in a world of noise. The diploma is a path, but it is not the only path. For these visionaries, the classroom walls were simply too narrow to contain their vision. Their billions are not just symbols of wealth, but of a philosophy. That knowledge is everywhere, and those who seize it without waiting for permission often shape the world. Today, their empires define daily life. Every email typed, every flight taken, every social post shared, every song streamed, carries the fingerprints of these so-called dropouts. They remind us that true success is not measured in grades, but in impact. Their names echo in boardrooms, on devices, in skies, and even in the stars. They prove that history does not remember who sat quietly in class. It remembers who dared to walk out and build a new one. To the student staring at a textbook but dreaming of a company. To the worker bound to a desk but imagining a new world. To the rebel who feels out of place in the system. Their stories are not commands to abandon school, but invitations to abandon fear. The diploma can be a tool, but courage is the weapon. These dropouts chose courage, and the world bent around them. So ask yourself, will you stay seated where it's safe? Or will you rise, step out, and carve your name into the legend of those who dared?